Hey everybody, today we're talking about how to come up with ideas for mystery novels the fast, fun, and easy way. I've got a pad of paper, a pen, and a 1-hour timer, and I'm betting that using the techniques in this video, I can come up with 10 ideas for mystery novels before that buzzer goes off. So let's get started. Now, this technique is going to work best for money murders. I've talked before on this channel about the 4 primal motives behind nearly every mystery novel, and those are money, love, power, and fear. If you're wondering why you see money so often as the motive in a mystery novel, that's because these murders are very easy to distinguish from one another. There are just so many different kinds of assets or revenue streams that people can have, and so many different ways of acquiring or losing them, that it's easy to write plots that feel very distinct from one another, even though they're operating on that same primal motive. So the first step in our process is just going to be coming up with a list of 3 or 4 different assets that somebody might wish to get their hands on. So how about a map to buried treasure? Or maybe some really valuable computer code. Maybe a precious artifact from ancient Egypt. Or how about the classic of all mystery novels? Someone else's fortune. So we have our list of assets, and already you can see how a villain pursuing these different kinds of things might give a different flavor to the novel. It might have us going into different settings or encountering different kinds of characters. But now we're going to shake things up a little bit more, because we're going to ask ourselves, how is the villain actually going to acquire these things? We're going to come up with 1 or 2 ideas for each of these assets as a way the villain can get his hands on it. So you know there's a map to buried treasure out there, and you want to make it your own. How exactly are you going to do that? Well, maybe you would have to steal it from some other treasure hunters. Or maybe you have to buy an object that has the map hidden inside it. Or maybe you would actually have to scuba dive to get this map. It's going to be in some sort of waterproof safe in a wrecked ship, a wrecked pirate ship. How about computer code? How would you illicitly acquire this asset? I mean, the obvious answer is hacking, right? But maybe you could also stage a hostile takeover of the company that already legitimately owns the code. So you can see that what I'm doing in this exercise is I'm laying things out from the villain's point of view. I'm figuring out what he wants and how he's going to get it, and then we'll have to work backward from there to figure out what things look like from the detective's point of view. Okay, ancient Egyptian artifact. I mean, the thing that occurs to me here that I think would be really fun is just replacing it with a fake. Or maybe you could actually stage a heist to steal that thing in transport. And then someone else's fortune. Okay. The obvious, the classic answer here is inheritance, but how about also embezzlement or ransom? Okay, so I've got 48 minutes left on the clock, and already I have 10 beginnings of ideas, 10 pairings of a asset with a way of acquiring it. But now things are going to be getting a little bit more complicated, because we're going to start talking about obstacles, things that are in the way of the villain getting what he wants. So frequently in a mystery novel, the obstacle to the villain getting what he wants is going to be a person standing in the way, somebody who knows too much about the villain's plans, or just somebody who needs to be eliminated in order for those plans to come to fruition. So that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about in this next step. Who could be our potential victim? But things might actually get a little bit more complicated than that, because we might come up with some really interesting obstacles during this step. So if you're going to steal a map of treasure from some treasure hunters, I think the obvious obstacle to that is the treasure hunters themselves. So I can imagine this as a really fun mystery with actually a lot of victims. We could say that this mystery takes place years after these treasure hunters have found the original map. Maybe they didn't exactly know what they had, or they were never able to decipher it. But we see that perhaps they are now in retirement communities, and we see several people in retirement communities all around the town being eliminated. Why? Because our villain is looking for that map. So this would be a really confusing mystery for our sleuth. He would have to ask himself, why are all these elderly people being eliminated when they can pose very little threat to people and they don't seem to have any valuable assets? Eventually, we'd find the map, of course, and perhaps the buried treasure. Although it might also be fun to find the map, find the location of the buried treasure, but find that it wasn't there. Maybe it's been taken already by one of the minor characters in our story who figured things out just a little bit ahead of the sleuth, or maybe it was never there in the first place. Okay, same asset, different method. Let's say you wanted to get that map to buried treasure by acquiring the object in which it was concealed. I'm imagining this object as like a rare painting, maybe an ancient masterpiece, and the map is going to be on the back side of it. The obstacle here, I think, obviously is you don't have enough money. I mean, if you had the money for that masterpiece, why do you need the treasure map in the first place? Maybe our villain will first seduce a wealthy elderly woman and convince her to buy the masterpiece for him. Our sleuth might first become aware of this mystery when the elderly woman's granddaughter comes to him, certain that someone is taking advantage of her grandmother. And it'll take him a while to kind of catch on to the villain's scheme and figure out about that mapped buried treasure. Okay, let's say instead that our villain is going to scuba dive to get the map. Well, the obstacle to this could be perhaps the person who owns the coastline off which our villain is going to have to scuba dive. You know, I picture this as maybe an elderly, crotchety patriarch who owns a kind of valueless piece of coastline in a rocky area, not very nice, and he just won't let anybody dive off his rocks. So this could be a mystery that starts with the murder of that elderly gentleman, or I could actually see some sort of false mystical element here. Maybe the villain is trying to make the old man look like he's crazy so that he will be institutionalized and nobody will be there to prevent him from diving off the coastline. So maybe he is staging some sort of mystical apparition on the rocks of the coast, you know, with projections or perhaps dressing up himself as a ghost. Maybe this could even link into some deep, dark secret in the elderly man's life, some crime he once committed, which he doesn't want exposed. At the end, we'll have to probably solve that long ago crime and also expose what our villain is trying to do to this man now in the present day. And that treasure map, I don't think our sleuth would wind up getting. I think it would wind up being lost to the sea forever. Okay, moving along, we've got our computer code asset. Now, the first idea I came up with for how to get that asset is hacking. Okay, what could be an obstacle to hacking into someone's computer? Well, it could simply be that you did it, but somebody saw. Okay, maybe your roommate saw. Okay, maybe you're a college freshman, you know about this really disruptive code that is being worked on by somebody else living in your building, and you hack into their computer and steal it. Everything's great, except that your roommate saw everything. So now you have to pay him off, or better yet, bump him off. So this would be a mystery that began with the death of a college freshman and would kind of explore everything going on in the dorms and in this particular tech industry that they're trying to disrupt. And we'd eventually find out that the computer code was the asset that our villain was trying to get. Okay, computer code again, but we've got a different way of acquiring it, which is a hostile takeover of the company that owns that code. A potential obstacle to that would be the CEO of the company, who is such a dynamo that really, without him, the company is going to be very vulnerable to takeover. But I don't know if that feels twisty enough for me. What if the obstacle is that the company is simply not vulnerable to takeover? It's too robust in the market, it's doing too well, there's no way you're ever going to be able to acquire it. What if then your crime is going to be discrediting the company? Oh, okay. Maybe the company makes some sort of GPS software, and you can actually kill some of the clients using that GPS software and make it look as if it was malfunctions in the software that resulted in their deaths. Maybe you can lure them to dangerous areas or drive them off cliffs or something like this. You know what? Maybe this is a self-driving vehicle, actually. So you make the company look terrible, the stock value plummets, and then you're able to acquire the company and with it that crucial computer code. So there's an ancient Egyptian artifact that you want to replace with a fake. What's going to be an obstacle to this? To me, the obvious area I would want to go to would be that somebody had to help you create that fake. Okay, so this would be a mystery that began with the murder of some potter or jeweler, somebody with the skills to replicate that artifact, but who seems to have no big assets, nobody who hates them, no real obvious motive why somebody would want them dead. I think we'd bring in the Egypt angle fairly early on, and then around the midpoint, we'd expose that the artifact in the museum is currently a fake. So we'd know why our potter was killed, and by the end we'd learn exactly who enlisted him to make that fake and who now has the original. So there's an ancient Egyptian artifact and you want to arrange a heist to steal it mid-transport. What is going to be our obstacle to that little plan? Okay, maybe the obstacle is that this artifact is being transported by rail, by train. So this might have to be a historical. It's being transported by train and somebody else on the train wants to commit murder. So you just want to do your nice bloodless little heist, but somebody has died. There's a detective questioning everybody on the train, and so now you have to be really careful about what you say because he's not after you, but you could wind up exposed. So this would be a mystery where we initially think that the mystery with the artifact and the mystery with the murder have something to do with one another, but at the end we'll find out that there were two separate villains all along. Okay, so you want to inherit a fortune. What's an obstacle to that? Well, obviously the person you hope to inherit from is an obstacle, and so would any primary heirs who take precedence over you. So we could write a mystery in which either of these two characters would be eliminated, but that one has been done, so let's dig a little deeper. Maybe the obstacle to you inheriting is that you're not an heir. And in that case, you might try to impersonate the original heir. This would have to be a mystery in which the original heir was estranged from his family for quite some time. And our villain found out about it just at the time when the patriarch of the family died, making that heir a rich man. Our villain would kill the heir and rush to the family estate to begin impersonating him. Our sleuth would have to unmask the villain's deception and the murder of that original heir. All right, 21 minutes to go. Embezzlement. You're planning to embezzle someone else's fortune, but something or someone is standing in your way. Oh, okay. To me, what would be really fun here is actually if the person from whom you are embezzling has caught on to your scheme. And so now you don't want to kill this person because then their fortune will be inherited by their heirs who might be less malleable. But you do need to discredit or quiet or otherwise get this person under control. So let's say that this is a mystery where there's an elderly person who's behaving very erratically and whose heirs are trying to have him declared incompetent. At the end, we'll learn that he was being drugged by his business manager who has been steadily embezzling from him. Although what that plot doesn't have actually is a murder. So I think at some point we would need somebody else to catch on to the business manager's scheme, and that person would have to be silenced permanently. All right, as soon as I said ransom, I knew exactly what I wanted the obstacle to this method of acquiring a fortune to be, and that's you kidnapped the wrong person. So this might be a plot where you intended to kidnap the wife of some wealthy billionaire, but instead you accidentally kidnapped the wife of a mob boss. So now not only do you not have a way to get your payday, but you are in desperate danger. And honestly, this is sounding less like a mystery, more like kind of a campy thriller, but that's okay, all right? When we brainstorm, sometimes we come up with ideas that really surprise us, and that's all part of the fun. All right, let's see where I am on time. I have 15 minutes left, 15:02. Well, I have won, and I hope that you have too, because you've seen how just creating simple lists of assets, ways to acquire them, and obstacles can unlock your creativity and have you easily brainstorming awesome plots. If I were going to take any of these plots and develop it into a full-length novel, my very next step would be creating plot twists. That is, ways that I could really surprise the reader. If you want to know exactly how to do that, I'm going to recommend that you watch this video. It's where I showed exactly how to create a plot twist and how to set it up so that it will not only surprise, but also satisfy.